Hi and welcome to another 3-string cigar box guitar lesson. I'm Sean from Chord Guitar and we're carrying on with our fretted note plus slide playing series here. Previous one, Chicago Blues, so check that out if you haven't already. Here we're looking at something a little bit more soulful, sort of country rock crossover, and basically it's all in a major key, so just looking at how you can put a really sort of classic, very effective sounding chord sequence together and put some like chord embellishments in, using like grace note, like hammer-ons and pull-offs, and almost quite sort of Hendrixy sounding. I've got a bit of slide in the middle, just so we can mix it up a little bit. And please, if you like this lesson, please consider going to our website and downloading the score for a very reasonable price. It's half price for the first 7 days, so you can follow the link below this video. It's much appreciated. It just helps support the channel, just so we can produce more content, basically. But before we carry on, should we just see if we are in tune? So we've got low G, high D, and high G. Okay, so there's a previous video from about 18 months ago where we were looking at chords in like major keys and scales and things, so I'll put a link so you can have a little look at those in more details if you want. But basically, the chord progression here is it starts on C, and we've got, like I said, some sort of embellishments, some little licks, but these are the basic chords, and we're mostly using this particular G power chord shape here. There's a lick in the first part which kind of plays over the E minor, or rather that's an E power chord as well. We would often actually play E up here on fret 9, but we're going up there for the slide, but we're actually playing it down here when we're doing the first section, the fretted section. And then we've got a D. So that's also a power chord. Power chords when you've only got 2 notes as opposed to the normal 3 in either a major or a minor, which were covered in that previous lesson. So we've got C. Now in the Chicago Blues lesson, I covered bar technique in quite a lot of detail. There was also quite a lot on bar technique in Sunshine of Your Love, one of the classic rock, which is also flat picking lessons. So if you check either of those out, it will hopefully help you with barring. But basically, you just want to be halfway down the back of the neck. It's like you're trying to pinch together onto the side of your index finger like that, and we've got to be able to spread the weight evenly and flatly across all 3 strings. Okay, so a C power chord is just at fret 5, and we're just playing all the strings. G power chord is fret 5 on the middle D and fret 7 up on the high G with an open low G. And same shape down here. I'm only going to play 2 strings here. I'm not going to play this one. So that's the E 5 power chord, and then the D5 power chord is fret 2, open D in the middle. Okay. Incidentally, I'm using my slide as I did on the Chicago Blues one. I'm using my slide on the 3rd finger. You could actually, for this particular tune, you could easily like have your slide on your little finger if you find some of these little hammer-ons and pull-offs, trills and things a bit difficult with your little finger. The reason why I'm using it on my 3rd is because just for general playing, if we're mixing it up playing chords, just because of the tuning on a 3-string like the standard GDG, we end up sometimes with like quite sort of stretched out shapes. So it just helps to have the little finger handy, and also if you're doing the sort of classic sort of blues rhythm playing, your little finger's a bit more flexible than your 3rd one. But for this particular one, feel free to put the slide on your little finger if you're finding it difficult. Okay, so let's crack on then. Now, I'm barring, and if I've got the slide on the 3rd finger, I'm going to hammer on with the 4th, opposite way round. So whenever I use my 4th, you're going to hammer on with your 3rd if you've got your slide on the 4th. Okay, so I've got a bar, just play the bass, and I'm going to play the top 2 strings, but immediately or very, very shortly after strumming, I'm going to hammer on like this. Okay, so that's called a grace note slide, hammer on, sorry, where the hammer on, it doesn't really have its own beat. It's ba-dum, ba-dum. It's very shortly afterwards. It would just be like 1 foot tap as opposed to. So you can hear there the second one had like different kind of different notes, different beats for each note. So we've got bass, grace note hammer on, and then just strum the top 2 strings with the 4th finger off. So and then I'm going straight to the G power chord. Okay, so the 4th strum is the G power chord. Now, when you barring and you're trying to hammer on over the top, it's quite important that you keep what you call bridging with whichever finger you're using. Because if you're too flat, you catch the string underneath. All right, so got a flat bridge. Very different angles with both fingers there. So bass, grace note hammer on, just play fret 5 on the top 2, go straight to a G power chord, let that ring for a little bit, and then play bass, and then just like, I'll go over the picking direction in a short while. Bass, chord, bass, chord. Okay. If you want a little bit more sort of practice with hammer-ons and pull-offs, there are various lessons. There's a very basic one looking at that technique with fretted playing. I'll link to that, and I think there's an AC/DC one which has got it in as well. But the next part, we're going to go hammer onto fret 2, hammer onto fret 2, hammer onto fret 2. So literally across all 3 strings. And then open, and then the actual D power chord. Open. Okay, so that's basically the first sequence. So it's bar, bass on its own, grace note, top strings straight onto G, let it ring slightly, bass, chord, hammer, hammer, hammer. And so what I might do is, you can again just go through with 1 finger. I might actually swap over and use finger 2 for the final hammer on, because it's helpful to be ready for the D chord. So hammer, hammer, different finger, open, and the same trick, bass, upstroke on the D afterwards, let it ring over like we did with the G. Okay, so on the score we've got some crosses, X's, so that's like muted fretting hand mutes. It just adds a little bit of rhythm. Basically, it makes things sound a bit more interesting. Sort of keeps the momentum, keeps it kind of flowing. So that's right at the end of the second bar. These are 2-bar phrases all the way through these chord progressions. So one more time, we've got G, bass, chord, hammer, hammer, and then D, bass, chord, right, and then it repeats. But actually what we're going to do the second time, just for variation, I mean essentially what we've got here is, it sounds a bit like a song, but it's more an exercise looking at different ways where you can like vary, you can like embellish, add interest, you know, musical interest, little licks to chords and things. So I've just put little variations in each time, and you know, completely learn it as written out on the score in sequence. But when people become quite good at improvising, they'll, you know, mix it up, and they won't necessarily know exactly what they're going to do next. They just know it all fits together, it all works. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the G the second time, which is fret 4, fret 5. So instead of G5, we're going to go to G. So the second time round, you can still play the open. All right. Hammer, but maybe just for a bit of variation, instead of doing 3 hammer-ons, we'll do 2, and then just play the open high G, and then basically go to the D chord like one strum earlier. So you go in hammer, hammer, okay. Second time round, different G chord, bass, strum, 2 hammer-ons, open, D, early, another strum on the D. Okay. And then we've got another embellishment. So if we're doing this, like I said, it's a real sort of classic Hendrixy sounding thing. So we're adding a note on top. It's like an add 6. I wrote that out in the Chicago Blues one. Whereas down here, over the D chord, that is actually turning it into that's the note that makes it a major chord. It sort of adds the third note in from the power chord to become a major chord. So we're adding like a chord tone basically. So that just involves a little bar across the top 2 strings, and then again a grace note hammer on, exactly the same technique as up here. So you just do grace note hammer on, just those top 2, I'm not playing this, and then open. Okay, so the second time round is C, that's like an add 6, G power chord, hammer twice, open G, kind of go to the D early, and then drop down, little bar on 2 strings, grace, and that takes us straight back into the C again. Okay, I'll just play those first 2, So you can have a listen to how it works. So 3, 4, 1, G, bass, hammer, 3 here, D, 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 mute, C. Sorry, go to the, I'll do it again. Go to the different G, 2 hammers, go to D early, the D grace note lick. Okay. The third one is a bit more technical. Just before we do that, let me just very quickly cover the timing. So, I mean, you know, if you can hear it and play along, fantastic. But if you find it a little bit difficult to figure out what's going on, I'll just see if it helps to explain whereabouts we are. So we're using a lot of half-beat notes. So we've got, it's a relatively sort of slow tempo. It's not that fast. So 1 and 2 and. So we've got 4 even length half-beat notes to start with. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So you let that first G ring over, and then we pick it up on an offbeat with the bass. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay? And then and 1 and. So what's happening is this hammer-on starting just before the beat. So beat 1 of the next bar is actually the hammer-on onto the open second string. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. So the D chord is rhythmically in exactly the same place in bar 2 as the G chord, and we let it ring over. Exactly the same thing there. And then the mutes are just right at the end and a 1, taking you back to the start of what's now bar 3. The rhythm for bar 3 is basically the same. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we still let that D ring over. Gap and 4 and. So that's right at the end and 4 and. So the third cycle round is bar 5. 3 hammer-ons, same as the first riff, bars 1 and 2. But what we're now going to do is a twiddly bit. So this is maybe a bit difficult. If you can play it, great. If it's difficult, then just leave it out. It's absolutely fine. It's just, you know, an example of what you can do, how you can add like musical interest. But don't worry if you're struggling to get this up to speed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, after hitting that D chord, I'm going to get my little finger, because I've got the slide on the third finger, fret 4, and then I'm going to play that once and then hammer on and pull off twice. So there's a trill, so the little finger hammering on and pulling off, and then an extra pull off to the open string. Okay, and if you can see on the score, it's they're actually twice as fast again as the normal quicker notes. So a lot of these, excluding the grace notes, they're different. The hammer-ons, they are 16th notes. Okay, so that means that they you get 4 of them per beat. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you can get what you call 30-second notes, which are like twice as fast again, which is what we're doing here. Now, they're quite difficult to play, but when you get used to trilling, hammering on and pulling off, you can actually go quite quickly. So that's what we're doing here. So we're just plucking fret 4 on its own, and then we're hammering on, pulling off twice, and then pulling off again on the middle string. So pulling off fret 2 to the opened, and that's back to normal 16th note. So half the speed of these 30-second notes. Sounds like that. Okay, so third one. Alright, so that's a little bit difficult, but give it a go. Now we haven't finished the hammer-ons here. We can basically, after, now this is a bit difficult. We can try and hammer a bar on, and again, just ignore this if it's tough. After, we can basically play the open G and slap right down onto fret 5, and then, because we've hammered on not just to that string, but we've actually hammered on covering all of the strings, we can hammer on straight away with our little finger, and then, so instead of going at the beginning of that's leading into the 4th time round. So instead of doing that, we're hammering on. So that gives us 16th notes, 1, E, and 2, and. A bit slower. This is going from the end of the 3rd cycle, so that's bar 6 into bar 7. And then there's the bass chord on the G again, and we could do some fretting hand mutes. So incidentally, fretting hand mutes are where we, if you haven't done those before, we're just very, very lightly just resting on the strings, so we're just completely stopping the sound. All right. We can do those dropping down to the E power chord, and then after the E power chord we can either play an open D or even do another mute. So, down, up, or okay, so we're going into a D chord, so you could easily play an open D early, it works quite well, or what I've written on the score is mute. But sometimes people find these mutes quite difficult because you get used to fretting, and then all of a sudden you've got to be super light. It's quite a sort of subtle touch, that, quite a sort of subtle hand position. Right, so some quite sort of complicated variations there, but yeah, really good to learn, and what would be excellent is if you can actually mix it up, you know, or almost vary them a bit yourself, and try to do your own thing with them, because you know, it's not a proper song, but it's you know, hopefully it sounds quite musical. You know, it's definitely similar to what you get in various things, you know, like Hendrix rhythm playing, that type of thing. So if you're able to be a little bit more looser structurally and almost like improvise with whereabouts you place fills, then that's exactly the approach that people take when they actually play in this style. You know, it's not like fixed, set in stone. It's much more varied. You know, they're not 100% sure what's coming next. But let me play the first 8 bars. So it's 3, 4. So quite a lot there to practice, but the slide's been faithfully waiting. So now on the demo, I added an extra bit of distortion there. I'll just keep the same sound all the way through. But if you've got pedals, it's quite nice to, you know, sort of vary the tone a bit. But we're keeping the same chords here. So C with the slide again. Tons of videos on slide technique if you need to sort of brush up on this, including how you can get a bit of vibrato going. You know, it really kind of brings it to life, but I won't cover that here. But C is fret 5, open G is the open strings. Now that's E, this is E, fret 9, and D is fret 7. So that's what we're doing in the first bit. Slide into it, and so it's like down, up, down, basically. We can slide off that a little bit if we want. Sounds quite effective, so you can slide in. A grace note slide is very similar to the grace note hammer-ons. It's just you can hear the slide, but it's not got its own particular beat, specific beat. And the slide off is the same. So you're not bothered about where you've reached by the time you meant to strum the open G. You just strum in time. Don't worry. Make sure you lift off so you sort of get a clean sound. So slide in, slide off, up, down, down on the G, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick all 3 strings, and I'm going to go up, down, up. Okay, and I'm going to go up to fret 9, up to the E, slide into that, and then I'm actually going to jump off that so I can slide into the D as well. So I'm only actually going to do a down up on the E, fret 9, and then do an up on the D as well. So we're going down up on all of these chords, the ones where we're using the slide. So we've got fret 9, D, okay, and then creating some 16th notes with the slide, which is strum, pull off. So that's just sort of flicking off. Again, there's a video covering that technique in a little bit more detail, so you can check that out if you want. Okay, so I'll do all of that first 2 bars. Pick, E, open, D, straight back in again, do the same thing. Now here, instead of going to the D on fret 7, what we can do is we can use the open D string, and we can actually make a chord by so that's a power chord covering all of them on fret 7. Fret 11 just on the high G is a note that makes it sound like D major. Okay, so with the open D, that completely sounds like a D chord, and we can slide into that, and fret 11, 9, 7. I'll probably go with my pick down, up, down. So I'm not necessarily bothered about catching the D string when I've just slid and passing through fret 9. But I do want to re-pick, re-strum when I get to fret 7. So the second time round, we've got C, G, fret 9, and then we're jumping off that early again and sliding into 11. So I'll go from the fret 9 again, open, okay, and we can hit an open just to keep the momentum going, and 4, and just an open high G there. Third time, same as the first one. All off, all off. Okay, the fourth one, slightly different. So I'm only going to do 2 on the C this time, because I'm going to do a slightly different variation on the G chord this time. So I'm going to go down, up on the C, and then go to an open G straight away, and then I'll do a 2 to 4 slide, grace note slide again, slide in quickly, and then 4 open, sorry, 4, 2 open. So this is the fourth time round up to C. So we could do the same thing there. We could do a down into fret 4, do an up just on fret 2, and we slide down, strum the high 2 strings. And then back up to E, just for down up, jump off that. But this time we're going up to fret 11 again. So timing wise, this is all straight. It's not got the blues shuffle like the Chicago blues, the previous video, and it's just 4 beats in a bar. Okay, so quite a standard rhythm. But what's happening here is we're actually, just before we go into this kind of extended part on D, before it goes back to the fretted part that's like the same as the first section again, there's actually like 2 beats missing. And sometimes songs like change time signature halfway through, so we've got a bar of 2/4 here. Okay, so what that means is it's just 2 beats in a bar, and then it resets straight away back to 4 again. So we've just dropped 2 beats, and then it immediately picks up, and it's got the same feel afterwards. So I'll play the 4th time round. So it's like this: 1, 3, 4, 1, 2. Now that is the end of it. That's the end of the cycle, and then it resets and comes back in with the extended bit. So we've got 1, 2, So what happens is it carries over and then we pick it up again when it resets back to beat 1. So it's 1, 2, and 1. Stay on fret 11 and 2. Down, up, down, pull off, down, up, down. And what we're doing is we're doing little pull-offs to the open string and working down. Now these are notes that are actually from like a D7 chord, which works quite nicely in the key of G major. Okay, so fret 11, fret 7, fret 5, fret 2. You can hear that works quite nicely when you go back to G. Okay, so this is the 4th time. And 2, down, up, down, pull off, up, down, down, up, pull off. And do it again. Slides, that's, we can do a really big slide from 2 up to 11. Make sure you're looking where you're meant to be arriving. And 2, do it again, and okay, I'll just do the 4th time into that. And then just going back into the fretted part, we can do a little double hammer on instead of the first part with the grace notes. We can go, so that's hammering on onto the low string, and the rest of it's the same. I'll use that same grace note from the D, the sort of like solely lick over the D chord. So we've got bar, hammer. Now these are 16ths, da, 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 dum, so they're not grace notes. Normal grace note riff now. Like a little down, up, bring the slide back in to finish off, so that's just like a little sort of lead into the slide part. Slide into fret 3, so that's a B flat, down, up, slide into C, fret 5, finish on open G. To the slide. Do that one more time. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so here's a final quick full run through of the whole thing. So it's basically 8 bars, which is page 1 of the score of the fretted section, and then it's another 8 bars of the slides section, but then, like we were saying earlier, it carries on for an extra 4 bars where the build's over the D, or like the D7 chord, and then just the final section is another 4 bars of fretted playing, and then we're just finishing with the slide there at the end. And what I'll do is I'll add a bit of distortion for the slide parts in the same way as what I did on the intro to the video. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. repeat. There's a G. Riff on D, repeat, third time. Back to G, E minor. Right, here comes the slide. To fret 11, same as the first one. Extra notes, stay here, build. Back to fretted playing, riff on D, and back to the slide. So there's using a pick, using a flat pick, you can sort of control the sounds quite nicely. It's quite a subtle thing. You can be like palm muting in places. I was doing that. It works well with distortion. So I was doing that quite a lot on the demo. It just allows certain notes to jump out, and you get a bit more of a varied tone out of it. But I mean, just play it in a very sort of flat, even way. Try and get the timing as much as you can. So I think the original was about 80 BPM. Slower is great. But if you're able to play along with that, you can find drum beats on YouTube, really good. You can get smartphone apps, but so say if you started at maybe 50 BPM to start with, just look for drum beat 50 BPM and you'll get something that's just a very straight feel, and that would be great to play along with. Play it in sections, rewatch this video, try and play along with what I'm doing, and then piece it all together. And hopefully, if you can see how I've been embellishing some of the chords, you can do the same tricks with different chords in different places. It's quite useful, quite good fun. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please consider downloading the score from the website. It'd be much appreciated. Help support the channel and everything. But that's it. So look forward to seeing you here again soon for some more slide plus frets here very soon on Chord Guitar.